We move into this next session on the topic, the X Factor, how innovation from India is powering the global enterprise. I'd like to invite the panelists onto the stage. Request you all to please give them a big round of applause as they come up. Mrinal Chatterjee, Vice President, Engineering, Walmart. Ravi Chhabria, Managing Director, NetApp India. And Preeti Anand, Director at EY. And moderating this session is S Viswanathan, better known as KSV. Ladies and gentlemen, please give them all a big round of applause, and I'd like to request KSV to take over.
Good evening, ladies and friends. Is the mic on? Is the mic on? Right. You know, India is home to several multinational corporations who made a foothold to make India as an innovation center for the parent headquarters. Many of them are present in this panel here. Many of you are present in the room too. India is also home to several startups, and startups are looking for market access program. And we've been debating for quite some time, how do we connect the dot together from home country itself? Multinational corporations are leveraging their enterprise in India for innovation. And the multinational corporations in India are also looking for startups to look at how to accelerate their innovation journey. And startups are also looking at an access to market, and all of them are being present here, what and how it could be done to put that across. So this panel today, I have an illustrious panel. We talk about where and what is happening from a corporate perspective, what is required, and what is required to make the startup and the multinational corporation, what we call as global capability centers, work together, and what else is required to connect the dot and make this as an innovation acceleration country for the world. That object in mind, I invite my friend Ravi Chhabria first. Ravi Chhabria runs NetApps in India. And the question to you is that the innovation journey at NetApp started perhaps 2 decades before. 2 decades before, and the startup destination started about 5 years back. So in your context, can you share, how did the whole thing start? Did you step up and say, I can do innovation, or parent headquarters had that fundamental trust and confidence that you could do it? And how did it start? And how did you play the startup game for it to earn confidence from the parent headquarters, run your 7th or 8th cohorts of startup engagement that you're doing in your company? You can give your perspective, Ravi.
Sure, thanks, KSV. And you all can hear me okay, I'm thinking? Yep, okay, super. So, couple of things, KSV. First, thanks for having us here. I think this is the first year we are doing these in person again, so really happy to continue to do all of that, yeah? So our story in India started about 2 decades ago. Just so you have context, NetApp's a 30-year-old company. We've been in the storage business for the longest time. At about the time storage was getting disaggregated from the server, we were at the front end of that. And today we are kind of front end of moving storage into the cloud, into the hyperscalers. Our innovation journey started here about 20 years ago now, in around 2003. And KSV, surprisingly, it started from a very large core engineering team, right? It happened as part of an acquisition. Also, I think it was very intentional. At that time, we had an India-based leader or an India-origin leader who wanted to come in here and decided, you know, that there is talent here. It's talent like me that's moved to the US, and we want to be able to build it up. That said, what typically happens in, corporations of our size at that time, I like to say we built India 2 engineers at a time, right? So you had this one team, but then every team started contributing 2 people, and soon you had 800 people, and that's how engineering came up. But I also like to say this, the NetApp India story is an amalgamation of 2 stories. It's the NetApp story, which is about innovation. It's also part of the India story. And India has evolved dramatically. I mean, you just have to look at events like this to get a sense for, you look at the number of startups. You know, by some stat, there are 40,000 startups in India today. I can tell you 25,000 of them are building on technology. They are not building technology, correct? So they are kind of looking at technology and kind of creating a new business. That's kind of what we anchored on. So we had to come back and ask me the question differently. What's in it for NetApp? What's in it for NetApp is we are an innovation-led company. Innovation comes from having talented people. We want the best of India. And for context, we are 1/4 the size of anything you would consider a tech company in India. I want to tell you this, NetApp at about 12 to 15,000 people. globally is 1/4 the size of a Microsoft or an Amazon, or you name the company in India, right? We're that small globally. So point for us is if we are going to get talent in to build innovation, we are going to take every edge that we want. What we noticed in the last 5 years, there is an amazing amount of talent and there is an amazing amount of entrepreneurial talent. That's the big change, right? So we are in our 5th year. We are on our 11th cohort right now. We're small, we're selective. Our entire focus is on getting talent, innovation, creating that branding and excitement about creating something new. We don't make investments in these startups, and it works brilliantly for us. It's a long answer, but
no, thank you. That is good. That's good. So I said the key point is you develop the startup ecosystem, work with the startup to find global solution for the global customer. That is a good one. Mrinal, if I come to you, Walmart has had an exciting story. You have been pioneering innovation for, again, perhaps more than 2 decades in India. But you also opted for a model of open innovation outside. We do see Walmart present in multiple times the retail innovation in the country, co-creation opportunity. So why did you decide to do the co-creation more intensively, and how does it support your internal innovation program?
No, thanks, KSV, and thanks for having me today. Good evening, everybody. I lead engineering at Walmart. You know, retail is a very ecosystem play. This is nothing new. You know, and we have been doing it for, you know, we are celebrating our 60th year of existence. Few things that we started doing, we know that there is best of breed talent, innovation that is happening. There are niche places where people are going and solving hard problem, whether it's robotics and other things kind of thing. We look at best of breed, what's available out there, and then figure out like how does it help us serve our customers. We are a retailer by trade. End of the day, what we focus on is, are we serving our customers? Our customers' demand is changing, right? COVID has accelerated a lot of consumer shopping and even lifestyle experiences and things like that. Retail is affected by anything lifestyle of our customers sort of get affected with, right? So we have been doing a lot of innovation in-house, but we also continue to sort of look for opportunities. We have done acquisitions in countries around the world where we found like good technology, like Israel has been a good success story for us. But I think this, besides just acquisition, we also look for partnership. For example, we do a strong partnership with Microsoft, with Google, and then there's a handful of startups that we work with. But the whole intent of the whole thing is like, how does this capability help us serve our customers better? End of the day, we are sort of obsessed about delivering to our customers.
Mrinal and Ravi, this question to you again. You did mention about some of the investments, some of the startups from other geographies also playing with your game. So your game is not strictly India. Your game is let the best startups come and play with us, learn, pick up, and do. So according to you, what are the few things which these startups, any one of you would like to choose to answer, you find the strengths what our startups are displaying and what strength they should be displaying? And if either of you were to start your startup engagement journey differently now, what you started 5 years back, what would the difference be?
You go first. So it's a big question. I'll try and answer it in my way. I'll come to what we would do differently now. Little later, we're already starting to do it differently. I think initially our focus was, again, like I said, we want to be able to kind of capitalize on this connection between talent and innovation. So in some sense, our startup accelerator 5 years ago was founded on just one outcome: good amount of branding around innovation. That innovation branding allowing us to attract talent, that talent feeding the innovation in the ecosystem. And then looking at the ecosystem, so completing out the solution. So at that point, if you were remotely connected in the area of data, we were interested. If you look at the world now, the world today is very different from even 6 years ago, okay? Like I said, there are more startups today that are based on data as the foundation for creating value. It's It's a very different statement. 6 years ago, if you were looking at data, it's because you transacted, right? Any retailer, any business, because you transacted the ERP system, the CRM system, the transactional systems generated data. And we were talking about managing it. Today, if you look at drug discovery, you look at ride-share apps, you look at almost any way you interact with the world, data is at the foundation of creating value, right? So today our strategy is very different. It's like if you are going to be dealing with data at scale, we are interested. If you are going to build value on data, and I think right now about a good 70% of startups out there are creating data, value out of data, we're very interested. And that's kind of, I think, the way we've evolved even now, KSV. And so that's something we are in the, so like I said, we are in our 6th year. In the first year, we've kind of reimagined our accelerator, and we're saying that's going to be our focus.
What about Mrinal? If you had to restart your open innovation journey, it has been one of the success stories in India. Walmart engaging with startups. So perhaps we'll listen to the startups' experience with you separately. From your experience, what has been your, if you had to restart your open innovation journey, how would that journey would look like?
Yeah, I mean, two things, and we do stay connected with the startup ecosystem. We have various different programs through which we continue to connect directly. I think few things, my general observation, both India as well as global startups. One thing is we're looking for niche expertise in a domain, right? Not looking for a general solution and things like that. So if I talk about some of the acquisitions that we have done, it has been very focused on augmented reality, virtual reality, and things like that. Very specific use case that we wanted to get solved. The second problem is, what I always notice is, and there's a challenge in the startup, and I've been in the startup world for a long time, over a decade. We don't anticipate the scale at which the corporate is working on, right? I mean, at Walmart, like the scale is just humongous, right? We have like over 200 million customers who shop with us every week. So every little thing sort of matters. So a lot of times when we do evaluation of technology, and we do run into some really great technology, it just doesn't scale at the scale that we want it to sort of operate kind of thing. So a lot of things come to us as a proof of concept, right? Which we would call it a proof of concept. If you can handle like 10 million customers, 100 million customers, that's proof of concept to us, right? So at the scale that we are sort of operating. So that is one of the things to sort of, when you're engaging with a large corporation, like companies like Walmart, is like, get to spend some time, understand what problem they're trying to solve. And we are most of the time, and it's just not about Walmart, most of the large companies, they're looking at very specific problem statement that they're looking for. And part of partnership or an acquisition, whichever way the relationship sort of gets built up, one thing is always very clear, that they're looking for deep domain expertise in that area. So even if you're a startup who is providing a solution to a large company like Walmart, the expectation is you have the domain expertise and you have the talent to continue to innovate in that space.
That was great, Mrinal. Preeti, with you. In your professional experience, you've dealt with both sides, right? You've seen on the startup side, you've seen the enterprise side. So you've also seen several disagreements and agreements, perhaps reaching the meeting point, saying that an corporate enterprise, the general sitting there, oh, I'm satisfied, I got a good solution. And the startup also saying, I'm very satisfied, I got a good buyer. What are the agreements and disagreements you notice? What has worked and what could be done there?
Sure. First of all, thank you so much, KSV, for having me here today. Good evening to all of you. I come from EY, and the group that I work back with has a very good meeting point between the corporates as well as the startups. So on one side, we work with a lot of corporates in driving their enterprise innovation programs, and we also work back with startups, specifically B2B SaaS startups, in helping them scale their solutions for the market. So coming back to the question that you were asking me, KSV, we see a lot of growth stage companies today looking for the right problem statements to work with. And I think it's a good market space to be in, because we see that enterprises have matured in terms of the specific problem statements that they're looking to solve for. And at the same time, we've seen a maturity curve emerge also on the startup space, where startups have gone through a process of evolution where they were trying to create more generic Me Too solutions to now being very specific in terms of the problem statements that they're looking to address. A lot of the startup founders today, as many of you know, don't necessarily just come out of college, right? These are mature entrepreneurs who've served global clients. They have the experience, the domain depth. They also know how to lead good teams. And large teams globally, they worked with enterprises, so they know what are the right pricing problem statements, value proposition that needs to be created. How do you pitch to a large enterprise? So there's a lot of maturity that's come both on the startup side as well as the enterprises in terms of working with them. But having said that, I would also say, KSV, that I think less than 10% of the startups which actually work with corporates really find that the relationship has been value adding on both sides. And I think the hard truth behind that is that a lot of corporates and startups struggle to find the middle ground in which it drives value for both the entities. And some of the core reasons are around how differentially aligned are the cultures of the two organizations, as well as also the speed and agility with which a startup would want to move forward with, but get stuck in a lot of corporate level initiatives, and your legal processes sometimes become a little bit of a roadblock in helping them move fast enough. Where they have made a lot of success is typically the 10% which have found value in the corporate relationships have been driven largely because there was a very well-defined problem statement. There was a very well-defined go-to-market path laid out with the enterprise. And also with the startup, there was a lot of support provided from within the corporate. So just to break it down, right, when a startup is going through its growth journey, they're not looking to solve only a product problem, right? They're solving multiple challenges at the same time. So there's the product, there's the people, there is the go-to-market, there is the legal, because a lot of times they are going through entity restructuring themselves. So there are multiple aspects that they're looking to solve at the same time. What they're looking for from a corporate is, and maybe because corporates are structured in such a large siloed fashion, they're not able to bring all of these parts together to work with the startup. So what really makes these relationships work is when the enterprise also create miniature startup teams, bringing together the best of people from various parts of the organizations, which can then support the startups in their growth journey. So I think my view is...
Yeah, good point, good point. How many startups in this room? Just raise your hand. Quite a handful. On their behalf, I'm going to speak. I've heard you both, Mrinal and yourself. It's a joke, but nonetheless, it's very truthful. Whenever a global multinational corporation leader visits a place like Delhi, right, just keep them engaged. They take them to Agra, Jaipur, show Taj Mahal, and the palace, etc., and come. And many of them land up at Bangalore, kuch dikhane ke liye hai nahi, chalo startup dikha dete hain, right? That's the way this culture has evolved. I'm speaking on the behalf, Ravi, since you have experience, how do we give more respect to the startup solution, what they bring to the table, right? They are putting their effort. They're often the complaint they have to build up on Preeti's point is, they are being used to give an POC demo. They're being used to perhaps revalidate what your assumptions are and build it. Their perception is perhaps they could get more due than what they're currently getting.
Okay,
Am I
so
right? Or anyone would like to add, subtract? Maybe your perspective, any one of you could answer that. No, they will ask a question subsequent to your response.
Okay, so just to kind of put the numbers in context, right? The courage that our entrepreneurs show, you cannot understate that or under-recognize that. And the point is exactly this. The odds are seriously stacked against getting everything perfectly right, correct? but the rewards are so high that yet everyone persists, and more courage to all of you. But let me put some of these numbers in kind of perspective, right? We had our chief product officer visit just a week, 2 weeks ago. So if you look at what we drive from an innovation perspective, through our own internal hackathons at any given time in a year, we are presenting about 300 ideas that come out of nowhere. If you look at our accelerator program, there are about
Do you look
20.
for horizontal solutions or big specific?
Anything. They are open-ended. Okay, and I'm talking about tech. I'm talking about technology focused in the context of our business. But there are enough people that will say cybersecurity is a hot space. I have an idea here, right? Now you put the startup ecosystem we interact with in context. It's about a couple of dozen, right, that are kind of doing that. So you look at their needs. Their needs in many cases, Preeti touched upon this, right? It's not just the tech. It's can I take you to market? Right? Mrinal talked about taking you to market requires a certain kind of a scale. Sometimes you're not there. Sometimes you're so early enough that you need to be able to have access to capital. We make those kind of introductions for you. You're not really great at pitching. You don't really have the soft skills of what does it mean to show up in terms of a room full of VCs. We train you on things like that, right? So ours is kind of a very comprehensive kind of a program where we are looking at the entrepreneur and saying, what is it that can we do to build up for you?
I'm with you, Ravi.
Yeah.
I'm with you. I'm saying what often we have heard is many of the global multinational corporations, I'm not saying any of the specific companies, generally do innovation as a checklist rather than looking at deeply engaged. Perhaps some Walmart example give, how are you making startup feeling special?
Yeah, I'll start off first with, just giving some context. Retail is an extremely thin margin business. Thin margin business, right? You have to innovate your way out, and we have been doing it since day one. We had the first connected point of sale system. We had the just-in-time supply chain and things like that. So from a process, technology, deployment of resources and things like that, you have to continue to sort of innovate. So innovation has been part of Walmart's DNA, whether it's process, people, figuring out how to deliver everyday low prices to our customers across 5,000 stores in the US and, about 12,000 stores worldwide. So innovation has been part of the DNA. So the good thing about that is like when we see innovation, we can feel it. I think the challenges that Preeti was mentioning about is like, and what Ravi was mentioning about is like, there's a startup ready. Is it too early? Have they seen the scale? What will it take for them to build that scale? Have they built the domain and the expertise and the tech in that particular domain? And we do run into a lot of startups where they just started the journey. It's too early for us to sort of even engage in things like that, right? So, but we are constantly looking for opportunities where we can sort of, partner. Like I was telling, like consumer habits are changing so drastically that we always need to stay a step ahead of, what to anticipate. And if you look at it globally, like, there's so many things that are happening all at the same time. Smart homes are happening, autonomous cars are happening. All of these things will have an impact in terms of how our customers shop, right? And how do we sort of, stay ahead of it? So we do constantly sort of connect with the ecosystem where you asked, KSV, the previous question is, we constantly stay connected with the ecosystem, with our own network of like suppliers, sellers, solution providers, our last mile solutions, our supply chain optimizations, and all of those kind of things. Plus, we go out in this ecosystem to understand what else is happening, what are the trends that we don't know, right? What is the next innovation that we need to sort of focus on in our stores, right? There are places, we do a lot of innovation like what Ravi was talking about. We run hackathon programs internally every quarter. And the thing that we pride on is typically the top 3, top 4 ideas are always going into actually production that our customers are actually experiencing it.
Thank you all. Since we have a few minutes left, any startup would like to have any questions to any of the panelists here? What do you think enterprises could be doing more for you? Or perhaps refute some of the things they said they're doing brilliantly well, which you challenge in any case. Anyone, any questions to ask? Otherwise, I go back. Anyone, guys? You guys are smiling. Anyone? You had lots of startups raising their hand saying that, or you all in sync with what they're saying? At least raise that hand. How many of you in sync with what Ravi and Mrinal are saying? No disagreement also. Boss, this session is ahead. Everybody stress what he's doing. That is good. Let's take the third one. You know, we have several enterprises also sitting in this room also. And as I said, many of them are wanting to bring this journey of change, right? Both of you are pioneers in bringing change to your parent enterprises through innovation from India. If you had to tell these GCCs that few think they should be prepared before they accepting the change. Can I start with you, Preeti, first? What should be the GCC, since you cover the segment also well in your role, what should they be doing? Be prepared for others to emulate. Just because Walmart and NetApp has succeeded is no guarantee they'll also succeed if they follow the same playbook. What would that be? Any of you still have a question? Don't hesitate. We still have 6 minutes left. I'm not going to leave them till then.
I think the biggest progress of change that I would see coming from the enterprises is to really start thinking like a startup. Because when you're working with an entity like that, you really need to be empathetic to the way they function, right? And their challenges also are pretty unique. Their expectations from a corporate, and by the way, they are spoiled for choice. Thanks to a lot of large enterprises driving their innovation programs, today, startups get to choose which corporate programs they want to be associated with. So I think what would really work in this case would be to have clarity in terms of the purpose behind which you would want to collaborate with each other, have clear goals and agendas aligned. I think the sponsorship element plays a very key role here from the enterprise side, because once the sponsorship is in place, then getting the act together, rallying different teams around the central purpose and making things happen on the ground becomes that much easier. And keeping in mind, again, the speed at which the startups move, please remember that many startups only have a runway of around 4 to 5 years, right? That's the time till which they are angel funded or self-funded. Very few startups then, start having other sources of funding come in, depending on how soon they can crack the market. So if you can find a way in which you can drive success for them meaningfully in that period of time and make that happen, that's where, really magic can happen. So I would say those are some of the things that I would think.
Any final comments, Ravi?
Sorry.
The final comment from your side for your advice to both the sides of the equation, the corporates wanting to engage a startup, how to make it relevant for the startup, and for the startups to engage with corporate, what should they be doing differently?
So step back regardless of who you are in this room, step back and look at the opportunity ahead right now. Two things about it. One, we're going through the most significant transformation of IT infrastructure that we've ever seen. Well, it's unfair to tell most of you that because it's the only one you've seen, right? But I saw the shift that went from mainframe to client server. That was my introduction to computing, client server. The point is this: almost any enterprise today, any business today, any ecosystem today runs like a platform. What does it mean to run like a platform? When you finally create value on it, that value is coming from at least a dozen, if not a few hundred participants in that ecosystem. So when you engage on that platform, you need to know that you're doing it from a place of unique strength. I think, Mrinal, you had mentioned it. It can't be that you're dabbling in innovation. It can't be that you're just a risk taker. You have to have a very unique perspective for what the value is you bring. Second is you have to realize it's not like you're building what IBM built 100 years ago or what NetApp built 30 years ago. You could kind of take a small niche over there and succeed so long as it plays with the rest of that ecosystem, right? But build it on expertise and understand that in many ways you have it easier than anybody has had with you, even if you go back 5 years. Because the systems are pretty open and the enterprises are pretty open to kind of taking innovation from small startups.
Mrinal, your final comments.
Yeah, I mean, I think I completely agree with what Ravi said. I think I wanted to sort of answer, your first question a little bit. having your headquarters in a different country, in our case, it's US, bringing that culture of innovation and a very vibrant center here in India and having that talent in India, I think, you need to establish certain level of maturity in the center in India, for example. Like in our case, one of the examples is I lead a global charter, so I have teams across the world managing. Second is, drive the understanding of who our customer is. Like, there are things in retail which doesn't change irrespective of whether the customer is in India, is in China, is in US, wherever it is. They're looking for selection, price, convenience, et cetera, kind of thing, right? So, but there are nuances about US market versus India market. So how do we bring data to our tens of thousands of associates in India who are building innovation every day? And then build that empathy with understanding, like, what our global scale is. And that's how we have been sort of able to bring a lot of innovation into India, hired a lot of top talent from some of the best, what the industry has to offer, what the campuses have to offer, and things like that. So it's been a long journey. We've been in the country for 14, 15 years now. But we are starting to see the value where there's a lot of innovation is coming out of India, a lot of respect for the India Center now. It has become a center for innovation. In fact, our CTO sometimes says, the best thing that India has to offer is like, you're away from the business. So you could, in some way, be in a vacuum sort of solving one specific problem where there's a lot of noise on the business side of the world kind of thing. So that's my perspective on that, how do you build innovation as a culture in your India Center, and then, of course, the networking with the ecosystem.
Thank you so much. So what we conclude is the following. For all of you, keep a watch tomorrow morning. Tomorrow morning, we're releasing a report on open innovation. What does open innovation report means? What are the complexities of working together? How to make it work? It'll be possibly in our community page by tomorrow evening or week's time. You can access it. How the successful model has worked, what does not work. It'll be a good report. And those of interested in and final conversation, we are available. We'll be able to answer that. Secondly, at NASSCOM, we are trying to make the whole connected ecosystem work together. Startup is the ingredient. Startup is the ingredient. Global multinational corporations are wanting to move towards innovation. Between themselves, there's innovation possible. Between startup, it's possible. Those of you interested, work through with us. We'll be happy to connect with many of them. What I hear as a conclusion from all the leaders today is there is an opportunity in the country. They're willing to take the startups to the global marketplace as long as your solution is customer ready, customer-centric ready. And I also presume you didn't say that. I'm adding additional word. You are not so much worried about horizontal or vertical, right? As long as the solution is customer-facing ready, we're ready to adopt it. What a good note to end with. Thank you all. And as a token of appreciation, we invite you to stay back and take an offering from our side. Thank you all. Any other final question for a round? Yeah. Yes, sir. Thank you so much. You please introduce yourself. Good friend of mine. Special round of applause. One gentleman volunteered to ask question. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So my name is Sumesh. I'm into retail tech. My question is, my suggestion or question is to Mr. Mrinal. So actually, I'm very happy to be a part of your, the Walmart Global Tech Startup Contest, or the thing what I've done, and happy that we were selected to be one of the acqui-hire process, but unfortunately, we couldn't accept the offer. My suggestion, because most of our startups, see, while your program of acqui-hiring is so good, but the kind of value what as a startup we put in, when we quantify into value, the value what you are getting with the acqui-hire and what you put as a startup ideation process, there is a huge mismatch. So it will be great from the biggies like you to just look into that, so that as a startup we also get some kind of valuation, and we will be happy to be a part of a big organization like you. It's only a suggestion. Your thoughts on that? Thank you.
Sure. No, thank you. Thank you for the suggestion. When we look at the startups, we look at everything from acquisition to acqui-hire to everything. Of course, there are internal evaluation processes and things like that. But thank you very much for the feedback.
Now, need to close. I'm getting my people already walking in the stage. Thank you so much, all of you.
On that note, I'd like to request KSV to present a small token of our appreciation to Mrinal, to Ravi, and to Preeti.